This thermal image shows a server motherboard under load. Intense heat is concentrated between the central processing unit, or CPU, and the system memory. For decades, computer architecture has followed a strict physical requirement. These two components must remain in immediate proximity. Proximity is required because of the copper wiring connecting them. When data travels over electrical buses, the physical pathways on a circuit board, the signal degrades and picks up interference if the copper trace exceeds a few centimeters. These electrical buses are serial. They transmit data as a sequential stream of ones and zeros, forcing the processor to wait for information to arrive in a single file line. Because of this bottleneck, the hottest, most power-hungry chip in the system, the CPU, sits millimeters away from temperature-sensitive memory modules. This layout forces data center engineers to provision power and cooling based on the most extreme heat source within each individual server chassis. Large amounts of energy are wasted cooling components that generate very little heat, simply because they are trapped inside the same physical box as a high-wattage processor. Localized physical server boxes now act as the primary constraint on the scale of high-performance computing. This document details a public record of invention submitted to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office in March 2026 by former Google engineer R.J. Aguirre. It outlines a blueprint for an optical computing architecture. The core thesis of this portfolio abandons electrical signaling. Instead of pushing electrons through copper wire, it uses light to bypass the physical constraints of traditional hardware. This design does not address external networking cables between servers. It targets the internal input-output system bus, the pathways inside the machine itself. Standard fiber optic cables rely on serial transmission, sending a single pulse of light at a time down a glass tube. Aguirre's design utilizes a high-resolution microdisplay placed directly opposite a dense camera array to transmit data across the gap. This hardware achieves optically native parallelism. Optically native parallelism is a computing architecture where data is processed and transmitted simultaneously across millions of light channels rather than sequentially over a wire. Moving from serialized electrical pulses to parallel optical arrays removes the physical and speed limits inherent to standard hardware design. A microdisplay faces a dense sensor array, turning millions of pixels into simultaneous data channels. It uses specific color values to encode complex numeric data. During a single refresh cycle, millions of numbers are transmitted, hitting the receiving array as a parallel wave of data. Modern mainstream processors are limited to 64-bit architectures because of the physical space required for copper wiring on the chip. By grouping these optical pixels, engineers can construct ultra-wide computer buses, expanding architectures to 128-bit, 256-bit, and even 1024-bit designs. The engineering trade-off sacrifices brute force clock speed for an increase in the sheer volume of data transmitted per cycle. Moving larger blocks of data at lower clock speeds addresses the power wall. The power wall is the physical limit where increasing processor clock speed requires unsustainably high energy consumption and produces uncontrollable heat. This architecture allows for performance gains while requiring a fraction of traditional energy. This optical interconnect provides the bandwidth required to sever the physical link between the processor and the memory. With the physical constraints of the metal server chassis removed, the layout of the data center changes. Because this optical fabric does not suffer from distance-based signal degradation, components no longer need to be housed in the same enclosure. This diagram shows a traditional monolithic server breaking into separate pools of hardware. One chassis operates entirely as a CPU-only environment, housing dozens of processors. A separate chassis contains dense arrays of RAM modules, accessed through a central optical routing hub. This homogeneous pooling concept scales to a multi-story data center. Facility managers place high-heat processors on a liquid-cooled single floor. Temperature-resilient memory modules consolidate on a different floor. If the processors and memory are located on different floors, the computer itself ceases to be a single physical object. Instead, the machine is created through dynamic software provisioning, routed over the optical fabric. When a developer needs a specific workload, they request a custom machine configuration, such as 4 CPUs and 256 gigabytes of RAM. The optical routing hub connects those specific physical resources across the building to form a single machine. Unlike standard cloud computing, which slices a single physical server into virtual instances, this system assembles bare metal hardware on demand. This creates a transient computer. A transient computer is a machine that functions as a unified entity only during the duration of its active workload. When the task is complete, the software severs the optical link, releasing the CPU and memory components back into the general building pools. Under this architecture, a computer is no longer a localized piece of hardware, but a temporary state of routed light. This is the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Tech giants regulated here have built trillion-dollar market capitalizations on legacy, proximity-bound electrical architectures. If an optical microdisplay bus becomes the industry standard, current silicon architectures and the infrastructure built around them will face immediate obsolescence. Aguiar presents this technology as a matter of national security, essential for protecting American innovation. He has utilized the SEC whistleblower program and submitted direct referrals to the Division of Enforcement, detailing alleged corporate complicity in state-sponsored intellectual property theft. His strategic goal is to impose a patent embargo against these foreign actors, legally anchoring this intellectual property within the United States. To ensure the technology remains secured for national defense, Aguiar has offered a free, perpetual use license to the U.S. Department of Defense. This optical framework alters the distribution of global computing power. Future performance gains depend on removing the physical barriers of electrical signaling, replacing the localized motherboard with routed light.
Good evening. Today is March 16, 2026. It is 9:50 p.m. U.S. Central Time. My name is Rinaldo J. Aguiar Marcano, and this is demo D127. Um, to be honest, I'm not sure if it's 126 or 127. I can't recall. I think it's 127, but if I get it wrong here, I'll correct it when I upload it. Yeah, so this demo just to give you a series of updates of things that have happened in the last few days and information that I've received, right, from the Venezuelan informant. Um, I think it's an interesting collection of observations. Um, so like they're all over the place. Like they're not in a single category. There's some legal topics. There's some other things. But to not delay giving you this information, I'll bundle them together. So the first thing I want to tell you is a little bit about, like in the last, I think it was in the last demo, I mentioned that I sent letters to the Department of Defense and two people, including the chair at the SEC. And like I was thinking about that, right? Like if you hear that, right? Because regardless of whether I used to work for Google and all those things, it those are bold moves, right? So I would think that any person that hears that would think, well, this person is crazy, right? So I thought I should give you more context, right? Where is my confidence coming from? My confidence on this is not coming. I mean, so the fact that I sent those letters, like to the Department of Defense and to the SEC, that requires confidence, right? In that those patent applications are going to hold water. Because I'm not gonna send those letters, right? And then risking, if I thought there was any chance, sorry, turn this off. If I thought that there was any chance, right, that those patents will not hold water, because you can file a patent application for anything, right? It doesn't mean that it's going to have commercial applications, right? So for the things described in those patents, I guess the market will be the ultimate judge, right? Like those products going to market and they make impact, right, on the market. That would be the ultimate test. But until that happens, we don't know, right? But the fact that I sent those letters, it means that I have confidence, right? So you may ask yourself the question, well, why is this person so confident, right? Is that he is overconfident, right, on his technical skills? Could be, right? Or is that he knows something that we don't know, right? And so I want to tell you, it's the second, it's the latter. I know something that you don't know, right? So, and this is something I haven't mentioned before. So what happened was that after I filed, I filed these patents patent applications between March 6th and March 8th, the first batch. And then I did another batch on March 9th, and the last batch was on March 11th, I believe, right? Something like that. Don't quote me on the dates, but it's around that time. So after I filed the applications, I mean, each batch, I received information from the informant, right? Which works in the Venezuelan Army intelligence. And because because the Venezuelan intelligence is working for the tech bros, right? And they have them all bugged, and they know they're bugged. I mean, it's a collaboration, right? Like they give technology to the Venezuelans and the Chinese, and then in exchange they sacrifice their privacy and they allow those intelligence services to bug their companies and spy on their employees and everything. Right? It's a working arrangement. Right? It's a symbiotic relationship. Um, but anyhow, the Venezuelan informant gets this information, right? I mean, what they're talking about, the tech bros, and they like as I was filing the applications, he was giving me information about what the tech pros are talking about. So I know that these patent applications are already approved by the tech pros, and not only by the tech pros, but also by the Communist Party of China. Right? So I know, I mean, and I've known, like, I can tell you that the lag of the informant is like 12 hours. He knows within 12 hours what the tech pros are talking about. Imagine what that means, right? But because he knows, that means that I know, right? So as I'm filing the applications, in a matter of hours, the informant tells me when I go out. Basically, I guess probably the delay is how long it takes me to go out, because I have to go out to pick up the messages. Right? I don't receive these messages at my home for obvious reasons, because they have all these random homes and they have my internet intercepted at home. So when I go out and I pick up the messages, I learn what the tech bros and the Communist Party of China are talking about, right? I mean, the technology side of the Communist Party of China, which is really the tech bros, like the frontmen for the CCP. So when I filed the first batch, the informant told me what they were talking about, right? When they saw the cable, the CBBNI cable, they were like, oh, we have a problem, right? Because it was incremental. I mean, the filing of the applications was incremental. I started by the cable, right? And then I started by the optical bus that basically changes the architecture of modern computers. And then finally, I did, the processor, the CPU, uh, the disaggregated computer, all those things, right? So as I was filing the applications, I was getting information, right? And I know that they were getting more and more shocked. If I translate, because if I cannot tell you verbatim what the informant said because for obvious reasons. But if I translate it or convey it to you in a way, the feeling of the tech bros is shock. They are in shock, and they're asking themselves, how is that nobody in our companies or in China thought of this in 30 years? Right? That's the question they're asking themselves. So I know that these patent applications are already PayPal Mafia approved, right? Because if this produces shock in them, I mean, these are the richest men in the world, and well, the It's a combination of the richest man in the world and the most ruthless dictators in the world together, combined, right? And if all of them are in shock, um, because of what these patent applications say, this means that the applications are already approved, right? I mean, the technological aspects of the patents are already approved by the PayPal mafia. So I have no doubts that these patent applications will disrupt their business because they're in shock. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in shock. Right? They wouldn't be thinking how to stop the patent applications. They would be laughing, right? Or they would be ignoring them, or they would be, the things that they've been doing for all these years, right? But that's not the information I'm getting. The information I'm getting is that they are in shock, in legit, shock. They got me here with the cards. Okay, you got me. 1 second. Yeah, they got me. You see how many great cards they brought? Look, 1, 2, 3, and 5 already passed. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Hmm? It's incredible. There's only 18 cards and 16 are great. I mean, come on. But they made a mistake here. Okay. So yeah, so that's the reason, right? So I know that these patent applications are already PayPal Mafia approved, right? So that is what gives me confidence, and that's why I have no hesitation, right, in sending these letters to. Don't get me wrong. Like also from a technical point of view, of course, I know. I mean, I created these patent applications. I know the power behind them, right? But as a technologist, right, you have to be skeptical even of the things that you design, right? If I didn't have that confirmation from that series of information that I got from the Venezuelan informant, I would not probably have not made that move, right? Of sending those letters, because I would be concerned about potentially damaging my credibility, right? Particularly in the situation in which I am, in which I'm trying to get help, right? And I have all these actors trying to paint me as a crazy person, right? So, I would probably not send that. Oh, I see. So in this fitness, they have, I don't know, maybe 100 cars parked. People are getting, the agents are getting fit today, Friday, Monday, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And it's all gray and white cars. Amazing. So, so yes, I got during those 3 or 4 days that I was doing that work, I was getting not real time because I don't go out that often, but every time I went out, I got information, right? And the information was escalating. Like, the information I got about how shocked they were was escalating as I was filing more and more applications, right? When they saw, I think the highest level of panic, from what I got, right, that they achieved or got to, was when they saw the patent application for the disaggregated computing paradigm that basically changes the way data centers operate. When they saw that, they said, we're done. Like, if these patent applications are granted, we'll be bankrupt. Right? That's basically the feeling that they experience, I guess, from what I got right from the phone. So I wanted to tell you that the reason why I sent those, I mean, not the reason I sent those letters, because I'm really concerned about the national security aspect of all this. But what gave me the confidence to send those letters was the information I got that let me see um, that the patent applications were already approved by the PayPal mafia, by all of them. So, you know, that's I wanted to tell you that, right? So you don't think that I because I through all these years I've never sent a letter to the DOT, right? For obvious reasons. Um, and I did it last week because of that, because that information that I got. So I have a list of talking points, right? The next thing that I have on my list is an information I got from the informant. He explained to me something that is a TTP. Okay, I didn't know it was a TTP, but he told me that it was a TTP, and it's the following: is uh, uh, so Penelope Suarez. I have one observation of this, right? I only have one, and it's anecdotal, of course. But the informant told me that this is actually a TTP. It wasn't random. So the observation is, if you look at Penelope Suarez, she has a family member. Well, she says it's a family member, right? I don't know if it's true. But she portrayed her as a family member. Her name is Mayela Sanchez. No, sorry, Mayela Vilches. It's Mayela. That's the first name, and the last name is Vilches. Bil. Sorry, Chec, as in Zulu. Mayela Vilches. And Mayela is a cancer researcher, and she works in one of the major hospital chains in Houston that specialize in cancer research. I can't recall exactly which one it is. And when I was doing keyopinionleaders.com, that technology, Mayela said that she would help me get a meeting with the director of the lab where she works. Because that technology has applications on medical research. And anyhow, I gave a demo to Mayela, but it didn't, of course, amount to anything, because that's what they do, right? They give you, I mean, the PayPal mafia, they give you, if you are an entrepreneur or you want to do a technology company, they will set you up with hundreds of sales demos, but that are fake, right? That they will never lead to anything. They're just making you waste time that way, right? And get frustrated, because then you put all this effort into this sales pitch that never materialized into anything, right? And then it's a form of gaslighting, I guess, right? Like they make sure that when they send these people to hear your pitches, they discourage it, right? Like they tell you, oh, but we have something better that already does this, things like that, right? Oh no, we're using this other product, but of course it belongs to the PayPal mafia, that is much better than what you have, right? And they tell you that. I mean, if you hear this from 100 prospective clients, you give up, right? Of course, I never gave up, but you could, I guess, right? I didn't give up because I'm stubborn, right? But I guess, right? Other people could have given up, right? That's what I'm trying to say. Anyhow, the TTP is that when they have a target in which they have a high interest in, they set up a situation like the one I'm describing, where the romantic interest of the target has a family member who is a cancer researcher. And this is important. It's kind of the same TTP as you saw with William Kyle Adams and Terry Adams, right? Where they're family and they're both working from different sides of the equation on the target. It's the same. So in the case of Penelope, right, she was posing as a romantic interest, and Mayela was there in case Diosdado Cabello needed to get rid of me. She could get the cancer-inducing materials right from the lab because she works with those materials, and because that is very sensitive, they have to do it with family members. They cannot be, talking about those things or transferring those materials between strangers because the FBI could get in the middle, right, and they could be victims of a man in the middle attack by the FBI. So to prevent that from happening, what they do is that they set up a situation in which the two people that are going to be exchanging potentially, right, these cancer-inducing materials are family, right? So they could meet for a barbecue on a Sunday, and then they could, do the exchange or the transfer of the materials, right, and explain how to use them, etc. But if you think about it, right, it's. I mean, when I hear this, right, it's a bit sad because, well, I don't know, right? I don't know. Maybe I want to think that Penelope didn't know that was the setup, right? That was the, how do I say this? Um, because I mean, when I met Penelope in 2016, things weren't at this point, right, where they, need to harm. They were at that point extracting value from me, right? Like they were keeping me in this situation of creating technology so they could steal it, right? It's like having a I don't know, a cow, right? That you can milk the cow for as long as you can, right? And then once you cannot milk the cow anymore, then you get rid of the cow, something like that, right? But if the cow becomes a problem, you have to get rid of the cow sooner, right? So that's why they need the cancer researcher. Um, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I imagine that maybe Penelope wasn't aware of that this could be a potential plan, right? That this could be something that could happen when the thing started. Uh, but this tells you the level of planning of these people. I mean, I think, right, this shows that this is a state sponsor, right? I mean, who else has the capabilities of foreseeing something like this in 10 years in the future, right? And to set this up in a way that you have a cancer researcher available and within reach in the next 10 years if you need it, right? I mean, it's I don't know, it's mind bending. um, and of course, like, the questions that I ask myself, right, I have to ask myself, so when was Mayela, because Mayela is also from Venezuela, right, and she was brought here on a special visa to work for this cancer research institute, um, or institution. um, So I would wonder, I would ask myself, when was Mayela brought to the U.S. To do this? I mean, to work on that. Um, it's an obvious question then that one could ask oneself. Um, but yeah, so that is the setup, right? So well, he told me that they don't do that with every single target because they would need an army of cancer researchers, but they do it with a lot of targets when they feel like there's risk. Um, like, and I don't know, right? What is the criteria? Because if I think about it, what risk could I have posed to them before capturing that database? Like, realistically, nothing, right? And uh, what I'm describing, I talked to Mayela. Maybe I met Mayela over video conference, maybe 2020, I would say. So 4 years before capturing that database. So I don't know. It shows a level of planning that is really impressive, right? But of course, I guess this is probably detectable, right? Because that profession is very niche. Uh, and if you have people in those institutions, like, I don't know, like, if I wanted to turn this into a signal, I would see what are the characteristics of Mayela, right, as an individual, right? Years of experience, fields of research. I think she works in, if I recall correctly, in something that is called natural killer therapy or natural killer cell therapy. And that is a type of cancer research in which basically the idea is that they create cells that attack, and they inject those cells into the body of the individual, right, the patient, and those cells attack the cancer cells. So it's a way, it's a method of therapy that is using, biological agents to attack the cancer instead of chemotherapy. Uh, but of course, to test those treatment courses, they have to do research, and to do that research, they have to induce cancer on animals and I don't know, or other organisms, right? So I guess that's where the contact with cancer-inducing materials comes in. So that is HTTP. So if I wanted to turn that into a signal, I would look for um, cancer researchers that have a family member. I will concentrate more on the females that recently immigrated from countries like Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, China, or Russia. Right? I probably can give you a short list. Right? Yes. So give me just a minute because I need to look at my notes to see what is my next talking point here, and I need to do this safely. Oh yes. So the next talking point. This is something that it turned out to be. I mean, what I'm going to describe created a series of situations that unraveled quickly uh, into chaos for them. So let me tell you what happened. After I described this before, right? They broke into my armored vehicle last week, I think it was, or I don't know, a few days ago. I can't recall exactly the date. But they broke into the vehicle, right? And the informant uh, uh, yesterday, I think it was, gave me some information, right? And so I said, I'm not going to say exactly what he said, but he gave me some information, and I said, well, I'm going to improve the security because obviously this could be a problem, right? I mean, if they keep, doing these kind of things. So to improve the security at my home, what I did was I cut some of the plants that were obstructing the view of the cameras. So I did kind of some landscaping, right? And as I was doing this, I was also receiving messages, which is interesting, right? Like, I mean, uh, I think I have advanced this encryption technology and this transmission technology that I developed so much that I can now send and receive messages in front of their noses, and they can't do anything about it, right? They just have to take it, right? Despite them having the entire neighborhood, right? They can't stop me from communicating. Uh, but anyhow, I received messages, right? And in one of the messages, the informant told me that this guy by the name Ahmed, like that's the last name, Ahmed. Um, he lives at the 2318 Britton Ridge Drive, Katy, Texas, so in Lakeland State. The informant told me that he installed a canopy, I think it's called, right? This is, what do you call that? It's like, I don't know how to describe it in English, to be honest. I know how to describe it in Spanish, but in English, I have no idea. It's like imagine your backyard, right? Imagine that you have a backyard and you have a pool. And so on top of the pool, you put a huge fabric, like a huge piece of fabric. It's like a ceiling, but made of fabric, right? I don't know how to describe it, but it's something to give shade to the pool, right? But it's huge. It's a huge piece of fabric. So he installed recently. This is what the informant told me, right? He installed one of those recently, and it's a special piece of fabric built by or engineered by the Chinese. And the goal of this is like he put it exactly in the path of my Viasat antenna. Right. So the goal of this piece of fabric is the Chinese engineer is to allow him to catch the downlink of my antenna. So this is part of the technology stack that they use in combination with John Michael, Joel Gray, and all those people, right? And Gary Gray. So it's all of them with all these little gadgets that they have is that they intercept my satellite connection, my internet. So the informant told me about this, right? So of course, in response, and like I already reported this man and his wife to the IRS months ago, and he's in the same. Just to give you an idea, he's in the same report with Diosdado Cabello and with Mark Switcher, the guy from Ambassador Petroleum that also lives in Lake Point State. In the same report, the three of them are in the same IRS report from months ago, like 10 months ago. But because he is insisting in this, right, in stealing my intellectual property, then I reported him to the OFAC last night. That's what I did. I woke up at 4 a.m. and I sent a report to the OFAC. Okay. Uh, Now, also, the informant told me yesterday that he told me why there's three notices of entry, temporary orders in the docket of Judge Telfair on that case on the 387 court. Because this was a mystery to me, why they created three. The informant explained, because I mentioned this in one of the demos recently. I said, I don't know what there's three, but and he answered the question. He told me there's three because sorry, I'm driving here. Okay. There's three because so it's one for me, right? If I ask for a copy of the document, they will give me the notice of hearing. That is not really an order. Okay. If the DOJ asks for, so they have to have one for me, they have to have one for the petitioner, for my former partner, which is an enforceable order that they can use to take the child or to obstruct justice with the police, right? So if I try to call 911, the police, she will show this order to the police, and I mean, Morgan Heibner, right, will go and get a copy and show it to the police and say, no, this is a valid order, and and then the police will obstruct justice based on this order, right? One second. Okay. So the police will obstruct justice based on that, right? So that's the second version, right? And the third version is for the DOJ and Phil Denning. So if the DOJ comes knocking on the door, they will say, "Oh no, this is just a person that is crazy, right?" And this third version of the order is drafted in a way that paints me as a delusional person, right? And a danger to society. And that is also useful for the Phil Denning, so he could sue me for defamation, which was the original plan, right? They were doing all this, so at the end, so Phil Denning and Robert Mueller could sue me for defamation, right? And drive me into bankruptcy that way. Uh, that was the other objective, right? That they wanted to accomplish with that. But that's why they have to have three different versions of the order. So it's one for me, one for the petitioner slash William Kyle Adams, Morgan Heibner, and one for the DOJ and Phil Denning. So that's why this particular case, it has three versions, right? So, but when I see this, I start thinking about it for a second, and I realize, well, but because remember, I asked for a copy of the index number 8, which is another implementation of this very same TTP, and the clerk gave me a certified copy, so I have that copy. So, I faced with this information from the informant, I have to ask myself, well, but how is that they're going to pull this off if I can go at any time and ask for a copy? I could show that the other documents are fraudulent. And that's when it hit me. I realized that The way they do it um, is the following, right? Give me just a second because I'm looking for a place here. Okay. Yes. So that's when it hit me. The way they do it is bingo. Man, this informant that I have is priceless. He sent me here, and this place is a gold mine. Authorities should really come here, you know. So this is Tanya Lane. It's a very similar place to that place where that I went on Friday. Uh, but they have all the cars arranged here. Man, this informant is good. This is amazing. He gave me all the cars basically. I mean, this is a parking lot. This is not really a residential area. And you can tell because of the way the cars are parked. It looks industrialized, you know. It looks like I mean, the distance between the cars, the spacing, they're perfectly aligned. It looks like a dealership. You know, I mean, it's supposedly a residential area, but the way the cars are arranged, it's like they brought somebody from a dealership to park this car. That's how it feels. It feels standardized, like industrialized. Amazing. But now I have them all, and with faces and everything. GWS 2460. The guy with the PJs. Man, this informant is good. I have to tell you. Wow. Sorry, I lost track of the conversation with all this. Uh, yes. Yes. So anyhow, when the informant tells me about the why they have three versions, not two, but three. Like generally, it's two versions of the order, but here they have three in this trial docket. It's because of that, right? One for me, one for the petitioner, and one for the DOJ slash Robert Mueller and until then. And that's the reason why Morgan Heibner mentions Robert Mueller. I mean, I described this before, right? So I, in my website last year, I wrote a post in which I describe when I discovered the secret gate that Robert Mueller had in his backyard and the concrete structure and the dedicated power lines, all that, right? And there was a post about Phil Denning as well. So what Morgan Heibner did is in the trial court, she printed those posts and she added them as exhibits in the trial court to paint me as delusional, as crazy, right? Uh, and she put me on the stand and she asked me about those. So that's the reason why, because then those two people, I mean, Phil Denning and Robert Mueller, were going to use this third version of the order to sue me for defamation and drive me into bankruptcy that way. That's the idea. Uh, by the way, this compound or parking lot, whatever this really is, has a super special antenna right next to it. Like very, very special. Um, anyhow, uh, so that's the reason why she added them. This guy is important. Victor Zulu Victor 7136 got flagged by the pipeline. And also January Sam Jojo 7069. Not the pipeline, but the lightweight escorter. Um, So that's why she added them those exhibits, right, to the petitioner's exhibits. Those posts, she added them so to give them an opening to then sue me afterwards, right? And that's why they created that subversion of the order. So there you see the collusion, right, between Robert Mueller, Phil Denning, and William Cal Adams. Um, and another thing I didn't mention before, I think, um, was about that chemical attack that I described in demo 125 and 26, targeting the child. Morgan Heibner asked me about that while I was on the stand on September 8th, 2025. So she put that into the record herself, right? And I answered the question under oath on the stand, right? So, I mean, I think that's probably one of the worst mistakes, legal mistakes that they could have made, right? Putting that into the trial court themselves, because it should be on the record, right? Yes. So anyhow, but the next logical thought is that once the informant told me, right, why they have three versions of the order for that particular case. Um, by the way, this address, the informant gave it to me yesterday. Uh, I'm telling you that so you know, in case authorities see this, you will see, right, that this guy is good. I mean, he's top notch. WJG0303. That is flagged. It has three important bigrams in there. Four important bigrams in 7 characters. Um, wow. And this super important antenna is not only cellular. Wow. I've never seen anything like this. It also has uh, very powerful directional links. Wow, it's an AT&T facility. AT&T. That's why. So it's probably a main interconnect of AT&T, and it's here. That's why these vehicles are here. They're sensors, right? So these vehicles are sensors, really. That's why they're parked in this very specific way. That makes sense. So what they're doing is intercepting the cellular traffic of everybody with these cars, and the way it works, they basically can triangulate the path of any signal, right? Because they have full coverage surrounding the antenna. So, if the signal hits two particular cars, they know the direction, right? It's a way to compute the directionality of all the signals. And by the timing, right? If you have the directionality and you have the timing, the exact millisecond where a message is sent or transmitted, or a phone call is placed, you know who made the call. I mean, what are the chances that two people in the same direction are going to send a text message at the exact same millisecond? It's null, right? So that way they can exactly pinpoint the traffic. That's why these vehicles are parked in this scientific manner. That's how it feels. It feels scientific. I said industrialized. That's not the right word. This is scientific. It's a scientific arrangement of the vehicles because they're sensors. That's why. I understand now. Oh boy. The more you know. We used to have a meme at Google about it's kind of a rainbow. It says the more you know. It's exactly like that. And it had a unicorn. Anyhow, so I, the next logical thought is, well, but I can go and ask for the document anytime and prove that they're lying, and then I go and look at the certified copy that the clerk gave me of index number 8, and I see what the problem is. This document doesn't say anywhere the index number. I mean, she gave me the document, but it doesn't say this is the index number 8, right? So they can give index number 8 to me, index number 7 to the DOJ, right? I have no way to prove that this is index number 8, right? They could say that this is index. They can say whatever they want, you know. Um, because the document doesn't say the index number, and this is an anomaly. I mean, this shouldn't be the case, right? Like, I'm telling you this because I've at this point over the last 11 months filed documents with multiple courts. So, for example, if you go to the federal system, uh, in the federal system, PACER is the electronic records management system. It's called PACER, PACER. PACER, on top of each document, overlays, when you print it, it overlays the case number and the docket index number, right? So you know which is the document that you're looking at. Uh-huh. This is necessary, right? Otherwise, how do you know what you're looking at? You wouldn't know, right? So this is the weakness. The weakness is that Tyler Technologies, which is the company that provides this electronic record system to the courts, doesn't include, at least in my cases. I don't know if they do this for every case in every state that they sell this product to, but at least in my cases, it doesn't overlay the docket number. And this opens the door for the corrupt judges to create multiple versions of the order, right? So it's an intentional weakness, fundamental weakness in this electronic record system. So of course, when I see this, I go and look in the pipeline, and yes, Tyler Tech is flagged with and the executives in the company are flagged with in the database. Now, I have to tell you, I hadn't looked at this before, but when I see this, I go into the website and I look, and the concerning part is that Tyler Tech. I mean, the most concerning part, right? So in a way, right, Tyler Tech would be the equivalent to the elections technology companies that the Communist Party of China provides to all the countries in the world, right? It's the equivalent, but for the courts, right? So I guess at a higher level, the TTP is, well, maybe to make this corruption possible, what they have to do is to provide the software platform on which the state government runs an important system. In this case, the courts, or if it's elections, whatever runs the elections, the Communist Party of China will provide, right? That way they can advance their agenda, right? But the most concerning part about Tyler Technologies is that they not only provide uh, the courts record system, they provide a lot of other things. Like, if you look at the website, they basically describe themselves as a company that provides governmental solutions, software solutions, right? So they write software for governments. I'm guessing for state governments, right? So they have, software to run school systems. They have software to run courts. They have software to run other things that are in the government. And imagine, right? Like, if they're intentionally creating this weakness in the court system so the corrupt judges can create multiple versions of the orders, imagine what they could do with the schools, right? And there is a demo that I gave maybe 6 months ago that describes how important the school systems, at least in this area, are. I mean, in the hubs in general, right, are for the Communist Party of China. Like, this is a long-term strategic weapon that the Chinese use. Let me see. So it's concerning, right, that company provides the software not only to the courts but to other important things that run in societies, right? Or that help the government operate societies. It's an aggregator, really. That's what it is, right? it's a single point that can be leveraged as a point as a vector of attack against hundreds of thousands, if not millions of citizens. So it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. Um, but in the case of the courts, which is the matter at hand at this moment, the weakness, the intentional weakness, is that Tyler Technologies does not print the document index number in the document, right? So this way, the judge can say, or the clerk can say, that this document is any docket index that they need it to be, right? That this is what enables the switching of the different versions of the order. So then that's why it's dangerous. So in response to that, when I saw that, what I did, I reported Tyler Technologies to the OFAC, because obviously they are enabling the corrupt judges. It's this is an intentional weakening of the system, right? So when I did this was like at 5 a.m. this morning. At 8 a.m., a crew of workers showed up to the house next door to me, to the Chinese safe house at 22-1A Britton Ridge Drive, Katy, Texas 77194. And they were excavating to extract equipment from the ground in front of this house that is next door to me. Right? So you see that guy over there? He's just waiting, right? So it's waiting for me to pass. Um, yes. Let me see. See? He saw that I met him. So anyhow, yes. So after I reported Mr. Ahmed from the 2318 Britton Ridge Drive and Tyler Technologies to the OFAC, then within 2 hours, this crew showed up to extract equipment. It's the same thing that happened when I noticed that Robert Mueller had a powered line communication modem. They showed up to Valley Side to extract the second modem, right? It's the same thing. When they get into this state of panic, the solution is to extract the modem, right? To, I guess, destroy evidence, right? So these people, acting on behalf of Centerpoint, showed up to excavate on the house next door to mine to extract this equipment. So I go outside, and I at this point, all this time, I thought that this equipment is a green box that is in the front yard. I thought it was a Comcast aggregator. So I go outside and I ask the guy, what are you doing? And he tells me, no, we're replacing this equipment with that other equipment that we have in the truck. I asked why, and this is recorded in video. I posted it on YouTube. And he said, well, because this one is rusty. And I asked, well, and this is Xfinity, right? And he said, no, this is Centerpoint. This is electricity. This is a power equipment. So he explains to me that this was from Centerpoint. The trucks are not Centerpoint, the trucks they were driving. They were identified as TLC. It's a contracting company. But they say that they were working on behalf of Centerpoint. And this was electrical equipment. That's what he told me. And I recorded this on video and I posted it on the channel. So anyhow, uh, yes. Um, but you see, within hours after I reported, well, after I, documented, because in the report to the OFAC about Tyler Technologies, I described why is that they need the three orders, right? And I described the TTP and everything, right? And I even attached a copy of the book that I sent to the DOJ. So, one second. Yes, so within hours, right? Within a couple of hours, they showed up to they showed up to remove this equipment, right? Which I think it's really a PLC modem, a power line communication modem, similar to the one Robert Mueller had. Right? But I go outside, I recorded the thing, and I posted on YouTube. in response, what they did is that they extract the equipment and then they left the three trucks parked in front of my house, right? Three of them, three different trucks, three large trucks. I think it was kind of in retaliation, right? They think that's going to intimidate me. I don't know, right? But they left the three trucks in front of my house, and at the same time, of course, these trucks had equipment mounted on the windshield, electronics that I could see that they were mounted there. I imagine this was to intercept the the signal from my Viasat antenna, right? So if I sent or received anything or via cellular transmission, then these trucks, because they were positioned right in front of my home, would have an advantage, right, for capturing signals. So it was kind of a dual purpose move that they did. Uh, yes. One second. Yes. Yes. I'm going to talk slow in this part of the demo because I'm on a mission here. Yes. Yes. So they left the three trucks in front of my home for hours. Hours. I don't know, 3 hours, 4 hours. Right. And remember, like Centerpoint is a company that is heavily integrated with its network. You know, there's dozens of incidents documented, right, in the books, in video. Like it's talking about Centerpoint to me, at least at this point, is like beating a dead horse. So in response, what I did was I reported all the executive train of Centerpoint to the OFAC as well. And then when I did that, they moved the trucks. The trucks left immediately. Well, within like I would say half an hour, um, they left. Yeah. Before continuing, I want to tell you like that observation of those cars parked in that scientific manner next to that AT&T antenna. I think that is very telling of the technique, right? The technology that they're using to basically, I would describe the technology as pinpointing uh, the source of a communication by doing triangulation, but not at the target location, but at the antenna, right? So at the recipient of the communication, right? So that is very interesting. Um, Using the cars as sensors, but in that way. Yes. So that's interesting, right? The way they use um, the sensors, right, to position by positioning them next to the antenna, and then by the time of arrival of the signal, which cars get hit by that particular signal, they can, then cross-reference with the timestamps of the events. Uh, uh, but now this is interesting, right? Because this implies, yes, this is very interesting, right? So the technique is you place the cars, the sensors in this way, and then you measure the time of arrival of all the signals, and then you cross-reference them with the exact timestamps of the messages or the calls, right? And you can figure out by the direction, you can figure out who's who, right? Who sent what. But this has an implication, I believe, is that for this to work, for this to be feasible, you have to have access to the log of events of the telecom company. Because otherwise, how are you going to get the timestamps, right? How are you going to know that, for example, Rinaldo sent a text message at this or that time? I mean, for this technique of the sensors placed next to the antennas to work, this necessarily, I think, implies that they have access to the log of events of that antenna somehow. So, that's an interesting observation. Yes, here I have to tell you, I'm coming here to see an area that was referred to me by the Venezuelan informant yesterday as well. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. It's a gated community. They have it closed. I see. But I have to tell you something. They disappear these from the map. I mean, if you look in Google Maps, in fact, I'll show you right here in the Tesla. If you look at the maps, it looks like this is a patch of land that is empty, but it's not true. I mean, and these are satellite imagery, right? Like this gets updated, every week. But they alter the image to hide this complex for some reason. It's called uh, ah, it's called Bell Rock Marker Station. And note the bell in the name, right? So maybe this is a ledger. That's why they hit it. That's why the informant sent me here. He gave me the address. He didn't give me the name. Wow, but this must mean that the Venezuelan informant has access to the ledgers of the judges. Wow. I mean, I thought he was more an operational. This means he's higher level than I thought. Arguably, this could be because of the bell, right? This could be, huh? This is interesting. So it's not only master plan communities, the apartment complexes. Oh, I see. Wow. So imagine this, right? The apartment complex that I went to this evening, next to the FBI, that could be a crypto layer as well. That's why the score is so high. I have to check the name of that. It's next to the cat Mustang cat rental place that is close to the FBI. And I imagine the level of security of the complex or master plan community correlates with the level of security of the asset, right? Like, I mean, I imagine a crypto ledger that is placed next to the headquarters of the FBI has to be more secure than this one, right? Than this Bell market, I think. Uh, yeah. Talking about that missing feature in Tyler Technologies, right? The document index number that is not printed in the document. This could be turned into a signal of detection to see which states are controlled in this way in the US, right? So if you look at the core systems of states like Ohio, Florida, uh, Pennsylvania, to see if their core systems, the state core systems, have the same weakness. Maybe it's not Tyler Technologies, maybe it's a different company, but if the same weakness is present, where the document index number is not printed in the document, right? Could be an interesting signal. Yes. So the next thing is this, right? So as I was reporting, doing the disclosure to the OFAC, right? Oh, I also filed another, now that I was, filing these disclosures, I filed another one, which was a disclosure for the judges on the 268th Judiciary District, right? Which is the court that Phil Denning and the HOA of Lake Pond Estates, where Robert Mueller lives, and the same HOA that is suing me in the 268, suing the company. Like they're suing the company, but this is a harassment campaign that they have been advancing against me for 2 years. Anyhow, they also created void orders in that, but the execution is a bit different, right? So the way they did it in this one was uh, Lake Pond State Homeowners Association sued my company, right? Which is the company that owns the property. But importantly, the attorneys, which are Robert Markel, uh, Wembler, Butler, Haley, PC, they did not serve me. Instead, they did not serve the company. Instead, they served me personally. And this company is a corporation registered in Delaware. So by law, they're obligated to serve the company in Delaware. The registered agent, which is by law located in Delaware. You cannot have a company in Delaware with a registered agent that is not in Delaware. It's impossible, right? And they know this, right? They're attorneys. So instead of serving the company, they serve me personally in Texas to harass me, right? I filed a notice with the court saying, listen, they serve me and not the company, so the entire process is invalid. But the judge decided that he was not going to even read my notice because he said that I'm not an attorney and that I'm not allowed to represent the company. That would be illegal. And therefore, he is going to ignore the notice. Like he didn't even read it. That's what he told me. But then he puts in the docket a note saying that in that hearing that happened like a month ago, the company was not represented by anybody. So basically, he ignored me. Like, I was present in the hearing, but he said that I was not even there, basically, right? I mean, I'm a non-person at this point, right? For this course, I don't even exist. I guess that's a meta message, right? But he contradicted himself in a way because then in the hearing he told me we're going to have another hearing in 45 days or something like that. So please retain counsel for the company. But this is contradictory because on one side, on one hand, he's saying that I'm not even there, right? So if I'm not even there, how can he give me a notice and a legal instruction in that hearing where I'm supposedly not present? I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? But you see, this is a trap. It's a very sophisticated trap in reality. Let me tell you why. If I retain counsel if I retain counsel for the company, I would be acknowledging what he told me and validating it. I would be legitimizing what he told me in that hearing. And what it would mean is that I was representing the company myself, which, as he said, is illegal. I cannot represent the company because I'm not an attorney. So what the only possibility that leaves is that I am the company, right? And that what they want to do with that is to pierce the corporate veil. You see? So if I go and retain a counsel for the company, then that automatically pierces the corporate veil, right? Because then they will say I'm the company. You see? And if I do not retain the attorney, then they will find me in contempt because this judge gave me that instruction and I'm defying the judge. I'm not following what he told me to do, right? Uh, so they will find me in contempt, and they will say that I am in contempt of court, and that I intentionally made the company be a no-show twice because they already marked the company as no-show for the previous hearing, right? So then they will find the company in contempt, and because he gave me this instruction in person in that hearing, he will find me in contempt, and they could even put me in jail with this, right? So it's another way to put a person in jail without due process. You see? So what I did, now that I'm already in the OFAC's website, I created another disclosure reporting these two judges and Phil Denning, and I attached all the evidence of harassment for the last 2 years, including the the notice they gave me for this procedure, right? Uh, the notice of hearing, right? With improper service and all that. I attached all that to the disclosure to the OFAC. But here's something interesting happened. As I'm doing this, of course, the most powerful evidence I have is that notice that I filed with this court via the Tyler Technologies electronic record systems, uh, in which I notified the judge and the opposing counsel that the service was invalid and that the entire process is a sham, right? Yeah, this house I came to see it, 5005. This one on this street, which is, if I recall correctly, Meadow Lark Lane, 5005. Um, so that's the most powerful evidence I have, right? Because I'm notifying them in writing with a notice that the process was invalid, was defective, and that the process is a sham, and that the order is void, right? Like all those things, and then the judge decided to ignore all that, right? Basically excluding me from the process, uh, and excluding the right of the company to have proper service and due process. Anyhow, so as I'm trying to attach this special important document to the OFAC website, the document fails to attach. And I have to tell you, at this point, I have filed not one, not two, not three, but at least 8 different disclosures with the OFAC at this point, at least, right? In no occasion, any document has failed to attach in this way. And this is a PDF document produced with the same stack that I produced the other documents that I attached to other disclosures without problem. The file of this is tiny because it's only 3 pages. It's just a notice, but it fails. And I tried multiple times. I tried with different browsers. Now, I don't know how they did it. I think this was intentional. Intentional. I think they blocked that document from being uploaded to the OFAC because this is nuclear evidence against this judge. Okay, that's what I think. I cannot prove it, but it seems deliberate. It's the only document that fails to upload. All the other documents upload. Now, I don't know how they did it. And this is concerning because there's two ways to do this. I'm telling you this as an engineer, right? One is within the OFAC. If they have some way to control the website of the OFAC, even indirectly, they could create a bug or a condition in the code that doesn't allow this specific document to pass, right? To be uploaded. That's one way to do it. The other way is with the Chinese safe house next door to mine, the 2218 Britton Ridge Drive, which I think has the aggregator, the Xfinity aggregator. This was on an Xfinity connection. So they could have at the router, at the networking level in Xfinity, some sort of a filter that catches the signal, right? So, for example, if the document says 268 district court, kill it, or hang the packet. Like, they could do things to make it time out and never upload for if a specific condition matches in the document. Right? For example, Akamai has this technology in the cloudlets that they basically built after I invented them in 2012. Anyhow, I don't know exactly how they did it. So there's 3 ways, right? They could do it with a content delivery network like Akamai. They could do it with a Chinese safe house next door to me if they have the aggregator compromise, or they could do it within the software of the OFAC. Like if, for example, if the software was provided by Tyler Technologies, right? The same as they do with the courts, because they control the software. I don't know, right? I don't know if this is the case. If the software of the OFAC is provided by Tyler Technology or a similar company, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But if that was the case, they could also do it that way. But the observation is that when I tried to upload this document, it failed, and it's the only document that fails. So what I did, I took a screenshot of every single page of the 3 pages of the document, and I uploaded the screenshots. In this way, it passed. The screenshots, of course, because they're images, they cannot see the text, right? So I think they were doing it by fingerprinting the text in the PDF file. I think that's the way they were blocking it. Once I took a screenshot, then I was able to upload it. So anyhow, I uploaded all this evidence, and I sent it to the OFAC. And after this, I feel like they enter into the next level of panic. I've never seen them this panicky and jumpy before in the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years. They're really, really, really panicking this at this time. I don't know. I don't have visibility into. I mean, I know it's because of the reports, but I imagine they're already getting into trouble. Like some people must have been questioned at least, right? I don't know. I imagine. Um, but I can see how they are affected by this. So I think those are most of the things that I had. Let's see. Yes. I just have a couple of small items. One is, I don't know, it's a question, right? I guess I'll ask this question to the authorities if I ever get to talk to them, but I'm just gonna record here so I don't forget. Like this is a question that I've had in my mind for years, and I've never found the answer to this. And I don't know if they maybe can tell me what happened to this, but there is a server that got lost years ago. I used to call it the Anaconda server. It's a server that I gave to Ana Codallo to hold for me while I was moving to New York. I never saw that server again, and I asked her, and she says that she doesn't have the server. Uh, she doesn't even recall having the server. Right? That's what she told me. But I'm sure that I gave it to her. Uh, uh, yeah, this guy is important. Whiskey January Zulu 4744 and Whiskey January Zulu 4756. No, this is interesting. He has two trucks, different model, different year, but the two trucks have 5 characters in common in the plate. Isn't that a coincidence or what? Whiskey January Zulu 4744, Whiskey January Zulu 4756. So you see, only the last 2 digits are different. Um, that's because that plate those sequences of bigrams encode the function of the age. That's not random. And I described this before, right, in multiple levels. So anyhow, yeah. So the Anaconda server went missing. She doesn't know what it is. I've never saw it again, and it's important because this server contained the code of the second version of loquegustes.com, which is the one of the startups that Piero Midiar and um, Bob Briscoe were attacking, right, since at least 2005. And this server went missing, I think, around 2012. Um, so it's a mystery, right? But Ana Codallo Gagnon doesn't have any recollection about this server. So I don't know if authorities ever see this, because this is interesting because this server, this physical object, ties all this to Briscoe, and that's what I'm not asking because of the code. I'm asking because this is physical evidence, right? And so I don't know. It could be useful to trace this back to the tech pros. I'm gonna get them with the patents anyway, but it would be good to get them with Loki Gustus. Poetic justice in a way, right? Yes. And the other thing I want to tell you is about Alvar, right? So this is one of the greatest mysteries to me. Um, like I don't know, like what happened to Alvaro? Like, did he move to Portugal? Because I don't know. At some point, so let me tell you, Alvaro is an interesting character because he's been like of all these agents, he's the one that has been the most involved in most of my ventures, right? Different startups, like he came to work in my team at Goldman Sachs. He was in my team at Google, like he followed me around for uh, I don't know, uh, 2012, for like 14 years, right? And his brother, Silvio, right, as well. And I'm mentioning them because they're interesting because Silvio has a direct connection to Travis Kalanick because of the Cloud Kitchen, right? So Silvio Gutierrez, the brother of Alvaro Gutierrez, has a startup that works in combination with Cloud Kitchens, which is owned by Travis Kalanick. I imagine this is the vehicle for payment. It's the way that they compensate these two agents, our brothers. Right? So they're interesting. But at some point over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, they presented to me a narrative that they were going to move to Portugal. I don't know if this was kind of an extraction mechanism, so I forget of their existence, right? They moved to another continent. Alvaro gave me this story that he had, came into millions of dollars because of the Olo. Olo is a startup company that he worked for 4 years, and he got 1% of the stock of the company. Imagine that. They gave to one engineer that joined late in the game. Olo was founded like, I don't know, in 2002, something like that, or 2005. I can't recall, right? But many years ago. And Alvaro joined in 2013, I think, or 2014. And then Olo IPO'd in 2018 or 19. And, despite joining so late in the game, Alvaro got 1% of the company in a stock. I believe this was the compensation, right, for the espionage. So anyhow, the story they gave me is that he came into possession of, I don't know, $40 million or something like that because of the IPO, and that he was going to. They were all moving him, like Alvaro, Silvio, their parents, their sister, like everybody, right, were moving to Portugal, and that they had bought multiple houses, one next to the other in Portugal. Now I don't know if this is true or was just. Or if this was just a way for them to remove themselves from the equation, right? Because they saw risk on the escalation of the things that were happening. It could be one of the two things. But it's also a mystery to me because I never heard back from them, and I don't know if they really moved to Portugal or if it was just an extraction mechanism. So that's another burning question that I have. I'm just recording that here in case I manage to talk to the authorities. They can, I can remind myself to ask these questions, right? In case they can help me answer them. I don't know if that would be possible. Okay. So I'm gonna close this demo with this information for now, um, and I'll see you on the next one. Before I forget, one more comment. That thing about the document, the notice that I filed with the 268th court, not uploading to the OFAC's self-reporting portal. That thing on itself, I think it's interesting, not only because of the mechanics of on how they potentially did it, but because it shows that this judge, for some reason, is very important to them. Because, I mean, I've reported other judges to the OFAC, and they never block the evidence. But this particular one, they block that evidence that way, and this specific evidence, right? So there is something about this judge that worries them. I don't know. I don't know what it is right yet. I have to look into it. Maybe it's a past case that this judge worked on. I don't know, right? Maybe he worked on a case that was somebody important, and I imagine right? It has to be something that they see liability on, that it's bigger than the judge. Um, so I don't know. It's just a tip, right? A lead, something that could be interesting to understand. Okay. I didn't mention this before, but in that hotel, right, that is next to the Mustang Cat. So, by the way, a couple of things before because I will forget. So the twin, I think it's called Twin Peaks. It's kind of a restaurant. That thing, it's always next to an important hub. Um, I haven't checked, but I imagine it's because it's an important piece of the infrastructure, right? Somehow. Um, Twin Peaks. There's one in I think in I-10, and one here next to the FBI. So next to that Twin Peaks, there is a hotel. Okay, and in that hotel, I stopped there for a second because there is an important antenna in that hotel. It's in the lobby, next to the door. Uh, and but the interesting, I mean, I was coming there to get samples, right? But the interesting thing is um, that right in front of the antenna was parked a vehicle of a company called something like, yeah, I have to check the recording. I took photos of it, but ELK, something like that. It's a white truck, and it has the logo in the door. Now, this particular white truck is interesting because it had like three different things that were interesting, right? That got flagged by the models. One is it had that, so they use one of the symbols in the network is it's like an American flag that they put in the vehicle. So it's kind of a sticker. It's an American flag, but it's black. And this is a marker, that this is somebody. I think they're military, or so it feels. I mean, because I've seen many of these people, right, that are driving these trucks. They look military, right? They have this look more or less like Enrique Morales, like that type of people, right? Um, I mean, I don't mean to typify people, but like you look at these guys and you can tell, right, that they're people that work with their bodies, right? Not that they go to the gym, but that their line of work is physical. Is what I'm trying to say. They look military. I don't know how to describe it. And many of them drive these usually trucks with the American flag painted in black. That's one of the symbols. But now, interesting, this guy also had that attachment that they put in the important pickup trucks. That there's one of those at Lake Mon Estates in front of Miller. Miller, the intellectual property attorney. The marker is it's kind of a grill that goes on top of the truck or SUV. It's kind of to carry a canoe, something like that. Right? It's not a regular roof, rack. It's not that. It's kind of a specialized roof rack for carrying a canoe. I think it is. That's the usual use of that, right? So this guy had the American flag painted in black, the canoe thing, and also it had a sticker that said Tepuy. And Tepuy is an interesting word because it's an Spanish word that stands for it's like a mountain top that is flat. I think that is particular to that area of South America. It's a word that is very specific to Venezuela. So I don't know, because I know people that speak Spanish of other places, right? And I think I've never heard that word on the mouth of anybody that is not Venezuelan. The word is tepuy, Tepui. So this guy had a sticker on the truck that said tepuy. And it had the American flag painted in black and the other marker on the roof of the vehicle. Long story short, I mean, putting all these two things together, I would think this guy is probably Venezuelan and military, right? But I didn't see him, right? But the interesting thing as well is that this particular truck was parked in the parking lot in front of this important antenna in this hotel next to the Twin Peaks restaurant, next to the Mustang Cat, next to this important complex, which is next to the FBI. Right? So I know it's a lot of things, right? But it could be an interesting person. I don't know. It seems that way, right? Sorry, sorry for getting so many short notes. This is another operational note. I'm not gonna put this in the demo. I'm just gonna put it in the with cloud storage bucket. But one thing I wanted to mention on the I-10, right? There's the Twin Peaks restaurant. Close to that area, there is a company called Keystone Engineering that has been flagged repeatedly by the pipeline over the last few months. But I guess, I haven't had contact with that. I think I had contact with that engineering firm in Calgary, but I can't really recall the context. I think they interviewed me, but like this would be 20 years ago, right? I can't recall, to be honest, but I know that I've talked to them in some capacity, but I don't recall exactly because it was too long ago. It was a long time ago. But anyhow, that company is the score is very high. It's super flag, and that company is in an area in this case in Houston, in that area in I-10. It's in an area that it's a street called Kirkwood that has the wood marker, right? And in that the offices are in a building, and in that building there are many important companies for the network that are marking the index, and that the owners or the executives in the companies are marking the index. So just a tip. And by the way, this second time that I come here, there is this constable truck again parked here, like guarding the compound, right? And the plate is 157 45 78. I think it's the same. Yeah, it's the same as the last time. So like it's the same pattern, right? Of parking these um, official police vehicles in important places for this network, which is misuse of state money, right? We're all paying for that truck to be there. Hi.
Yes. Bring the bag.
No.
Because you
Thank you.
can you keep this?
Sorry?
I'm pushing.
Thank you.